It's May 4th, 1976, and another remarkable event is about to be uncovered by Arion, Rebecca, and Olly, the Retrospectors.
So it was today in history in 1976 that the Aussie folk song Waltzing Matilda got about as close as it ever would to becoming Australia's official national anthem when the Prime Minister, Malcolm Fraser, answered a question about which song should be used if Australia won gold at the upcoming Montreal Olympics. He replied he thought Waltzing Matilda would be appropriate, but in the end it really didn't matter because weirdly Australia won precisely no golds in Canada. However, his recommendation further cemented the song in the national psyche.
Yes, because up until 1974, the Australian national anthem was just God Save the Queen, or King, depending on who was about at the time. But by the 70s, there was this broad consensus across the Commonwealth that former colonies should have their own distinctive national song. This was the same time Canada was in the process of adopting O Canada as its national anthem. A very long process. They started this in 1967, but didn't fully embrace it until 1980. So in 1973, Australia's Labour Prime Minister Gough Whitlam had announced plans for a new anthem. The country's Arts Council was tasked with sifting through submissions from the public, and they were not well received. The finalists were described by The Australian as being between the unbearable and the unforgivable. And one of the judges responding to the criticism said, and this is like such a classic Australian response, "Is it offensive to you, Arion, if I do the voice?"
No, do it. Go for it. I love it.
He said, "If you think these are bad, you should have seen the rest of the 2,500 or so we rejected." So the idea of a new song was scrapped.
Yes, so they ended up choosing the Whitlam government in 1974, having consulted 60,000 people in a survey. They went for Advance Australia Fair, which you may know as the Australian national anthem now, in 1974. I'd never knowingly heard this song before, but when I played it through Spotify, I was like, oh yeah. It's got the kind of cyclical dum-de-dum inevitability of other anthems, so within a few seconds I kind of knew how it went.
Olivia Newton-John sung it in Sydney.
Right, okay.
Yes,
yeah.
she gave it as much life as she could.
Sure.
Yeah, more people than just Olivia Newton-John have sung this song. I should inform you guys.
But anyway, the point is, it wasn't a new song. It was written in the mid-1870s by Peter Dodds McCormack. And that's why the event today in history, where the PM stands up and says, if we win gold at the Montreal Olympics, I want to hear Waltzing Matilda, is a moment. It's because the Whitlam government had put their money behind Advance Australia Fair. That was seen as having been sort of settled in 1974. And then here they are saying like, yeah, but our official anthem, that's God Save the Queen, right? We're now a government that's come in and said, no, we're sticking with God Save the Queen. But, oh yeah, if we win a gold at the Olympics, that's a bit weird. So Waltzing Matilda. And that had a minority of votes in this thing in 1974.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the middle of this very tumultuous political moment because Gough Whitlam's government was rejected, was thrown out in very controversial circumstances, basically because Malcolm Fraser, his party, the Liberal National Coalition, had the majority in the upper house, and they basically just blocked supply to the Whitlam government, which controlled the lower house, and wouldn't allow them to fund government activities. And so that all led to this constitutional crisis, which was resolved by the Governor-General dissolving both houses of Parliament and effectively calling another election. And that was the election that ushered in Malcolm Fraser. So Malcolm Fraser and Gough Whitlam hated each other and everything that they stood for at this stage. And so this whole debate was triggered by someone standing up, a member of the Liberal Party standing up and saying this friendly question in Prime Minister's Question Time. And Fraser's reply is basically, let's not do the thing that Whitlam and his government had decided on. I think the song should be Waltzing Matilda. And in a way, he's not wrong. It's kind of it's a song
that's fair dinkum.
Yeah, it's fair dinkum. Thank you. Struth, you beauty. He got it absolutely right on this one. And Fraser was basically saying, no, I say that we should do Waltzing Matilda instead.
Yeah, because not everyone had been keen on this idea that, the Whitlam government were going to kind of impose Advance Australia Fair on the nation off the back of essentially a survey. They ran the polling, the people liked Advance Australia Fair, right, good, that's the national song then. The backlash was partly from socially conservative Aussies who were resentful of this, undemocratic departure from God Save the Queen, and also people of a sort of literary bent who despaired at the lyrics of Advance Australia Fair. The version that's sung today is a very different version to the one that was being being sung from its creation in Victorian era through to the 1970s. It's very banal, sentimentalist, patriotic Victorian stuff, and also very imperialist. Not even just imperialist. The second and third verses originally are basically just saying, we are British, Britain's great, isn't it good that Britain is now also Australia?
Yes.
Which didn't really speak to the people of 1970s Australia in the same way. So it's one of the weird things is, as you mentioned, Arion, after this incredibly tumultuous period of Australian politics, one of really the first things that the new government under Malcolm Fraser did in January 1976 was to reinstate God Save the Queen as the anthem for any royal occasion. And then for other functions, Aussies would be allowed to choose any of the 3 established national songs.
Oh, what a mess.
I know.
Yes.
Having 4 anthems all at once. I mean,
genuinely.
If the issue is, we're a country that's not really feeling ourselves, we feel like we're being subjugated and we want something that really speaks to everybody. Don't have 4.
Yeah, let's all come together under these 4 or maybe 5 songs.
If they'd hung on a little bit longer, they could have had Land Down Under, but they just had to move that quickly.
Exactly. Yeah.
So at this point then, you could choose between Waltzing Matilda, Advance Australia Fair, or the Song of Australia, which was always kind of, trailing behind the others. That was never really in serious consideration. But this state of affairs was also roundly mocked. The Age newspaper joked that Australia's national anthem was now God Save Australia's Fair Matilda.
I mean, there then followed a big debate which led to a plebiscite, like a referendum, a proper poll, where Australians got to vote on the anthem they wanted. But whilst they were debating between these songs, it's just really fascinating. Yeah, they're having a debate about the identity of Australia, but really, as ever, they're discussing Britain. That's what they're talking about. It's like, was Advance Australia fair to pro-British because of its references that you allude to with gifts coming from overseas and the imperial stuff in the second verse, with all her faults, we love her still, Britannia rules the wave? Or was the very same song anti-British? Because to institute it as the anthem is to reject God Save the Queen. Yeah. As if, by the way, the Queen doesn't hear God Save the Queen enough. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could play God Save the Queen when the Queen's there. It's her theme tune. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could play it anyway, whether it's your official anthem or not. It's hers.
Well, the other big controversy was over whether Waltzing Matilda was too Australian almost. And even on this day when Fraser was getting up talking about it, he had to take this moment to address the concerns that had been published in various papers that the lyrics of Waltzing Matilda were basically inappropriate for a national anthem. And for anyone who doesn't know the full song of Waltzing Matilda, basically the story goes like this. Jolly Swagman is out kind of hanging around in his itinerant kind of way. He finds a sheep. He decides to eat it. The landowner comes down, spots that he's eaten his sheep and brings some police along. And rather than be taken by the police, the Jolly Swagman says, "You'll never catch me alive," says he. And then he jumps into the lake and kills himself.
Land of hope and glory.
Yeah, and then but the final stanza is about his ghost haunting the land and saying, that his song may be heard as you pass by the billabong, who'll come a waltzing Matilda with me.
I think it definitely reflects the Australian national character to the extent that the lyrics are so gleefully, stubbornly impenetrable to non-Australians. That's certainly a factor in its favour. But the lyrics were written in 1895, so around the same time that these other kind of patriotic dirges were being composed. They were written by Andrew Barton Patterson, whose nickname was Banjo. He was a bush poet, but he was a lawyer by trade. But it was still several years before Waltzing Matilda began to be seen as this sort of quintessentially Australian artefact.
Yeah, so when the plebiscite was held in 1977, 7 million people voted. That's extraordinary, I think. Because presumably this was a vote where you had to go down to a polling station.
Yeah, out of 8.4 million eligible voters. It's almost
everybody, basically. Yeah. Okay, so they went, and Waltzing Matilda was thrashed, and Advance Australia Fair came out top. But it's a fascinating what if, isn't it, to think what would have happened had Australia won loads of gold medals. As they normally do, to be fair, in this era. It was just a bad Olympics for them in Montreal, because then the national pride of watching these Aussie sports people winning gold to Waltzing Matilda, which Fraser had implemented, might have swayed the vote, and we might have had Waltzing Matilda now as the Australian national anthem.
Yeah.
I mean, Waltzing Matilda is still played very frequently at sports matches and other occasions. And
but so's Delilah. I mean,
I'm being played by a band, but and it still continues to hold a place in Australia's national identity very much, and also in its passports, because the lyrics of Waltzing Matilda are embedded in the pattern of the visa stamp pages.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Something to look at whilst you're waiting for your belly to boil.
Yeah.
Now,
This episode first aired last year exclusively to members of CLUB RETROSPECTORS.
Join today and unlock a new episode this Sunday.
Patreon.com/retrospectors